Yeah.
We are live. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Could we all rise for the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And could we all remain standing for a moment of silence for all those in harm's way, all those victims of the fires, hurricanes, and all those military overseas? And thank you. And we're good. We'll do statement of advance notice. The notice of requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey have been satisfied by the inclusion of the date, time, and place of this meeting in the notice of regular meetings adopted by this board on January 6, 2025. Such schedule and meeting of minutes is posted at the Municipal Building, the Mount Olive Library, the Board of Education offices, and the 6 schools, and was submitted to the Daily Record for publication on January 7, 2025, and was filed with the Clerk of Mount Olive Township on January 8, 2025. I direct that this announcement be entered into the minutes of this meeting. And Ms. Schoenig will take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Aquino?
Here.
Mrs. Fenton?
Here.
Mrs. Figuera?
Here.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mr. Giordano? Mrs. Melendez?
Here.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Here.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Here.
Mr. Orzillo?
Here.
And I will take a motion for the approval of the minutes. Ms. Figuera, would you approve the minutes? Or motion, please, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our minutes.
And do we have a second?
Second.
And do we have any questions or comments from the board? No, seeing none, we'll take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
And do we have any communications or petitions from the board or for the board?
No.
Anyone? Any board members? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
I just have some friendly reminders. Tomorrow night we have our 3rd installation of our David Nash Parent Series, and we have the topics all about cyberbullying and the use of AI. So we hope to have everyone join us. Just like last time, the invite was shared with the public by email, and certainly if you have any questions, to reach out to Miss Jackie Bello. She'll have more information, but that is done virtually. So no matter what the weather is, you'll be able to join us, and you'll get the recording of the meeting following the actual meeting tomorrow. And just a friendly reminder to our families that we actually have a PD day this Friday, February 14th, so schools are closed.
All right. Any questions from the board for the superintendent's report? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Personnel Committee report. Ms. Aquino.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. We have a presentation
Oh, we
tonight.
do. Would you
From
like
our
to do
auditor?
that first, Dr. Banjo,
Yeah, we're gonna-
before the reports?
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome. We have our auditors with us, and they were going to present to the district and the board.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just want to say I'm here to present the 2024 budget. Working with Nicole and her team has been an absolute pleasure this year. A couple of things I wanted to point out, if you would care to indulge me. So there are a couple of things I'm required by law to tell you about. There were 2 comments in the audit. Both of them were what I would consider to be immaterial. But if you want to look at the small report right there, all the way in the back,
Board members, you should all have.
right? There were.
Excuse me. I don't mean to. Can you speak a little
Oh, I'm sorry.
closer?
Oh, geez. All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
You would think I'd be good at this, you know.
That's
All right.
okay.
So there were 2 comments. The first one had to do with some of the district work papers agreeing to the ASSA report. There were some immaterial differences between the work papers and what was reported. They were immaterial. At the end of the day, this number is something that we flushed out with Nicole. We're aware of it. We're moving forward, and we're going to take a look at that a little earlier on our side, and we're going to audit that in real time before the submissions, which is, I see a question, which is the best way to approach it, which we are starting to do this year. So that comment will not happen in the future.
Ms. Shonin, could you maybe explain that a little further for the public to understand, what that caveat means?
Which one? The comment on the ASSA?
Yeah, what the ASSA translates to for,
Oh, the ASSA is the application for state school aid. This is a report that's due by the first week in December. It accounts for the district's enrollment in district by grade level, by special ed, by regular ed, by our free and reduced lunch counts, the number of students who are ELL, English as a second language, and what that comment refers to are the in-district work papers that were used to report the numbers to the state.
okay.
Yeah. So basically, what we're doing in the future is that while Ms. Schoenig is going and completing it, we are going to audit that in real time so that we can make sure everybody's I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and we get all of our papers in order, and we sign off on that before we submit it to the state, rather than doing it subsequently, which is typically what we would do. So again, and if you look at the numbers, the errors were very immaterial, so not a major thing. The second comment talks about net cash resources in the food service fund. Basically, the thought behind this is that the food service fund is supposed to be a self-liquidating. We shouldn't be charging our students more than it costs to run it. Unfortunately, with the state of the world, the federal government, state government has been giving out massive amounts of money for food service. And I have this comment in pretty much every school district that I have. And after talking with Nicole and her team, we've already figured out ways to spend this money and use that so we don't have the same issue next year. And to say an issue, we have more money than we should. It's really not an issue. It's just something I unfortunately have to make a note of. So now that I talked a little bit about the comments, I did want to just kind of go through the overarching results of the audit, the financial statements. That's done on Exhibit C1. You don't really have to go through it. In short, we collected more than we thought we were, and in short, we spent less than we thought we were. So that's a good thing. Fund balance went up, surplus went up, and why that's important to the district, I did, speaking with Nicole, I understand that we did have a referendum that did fail in the not too distant past. That's important because we have the ability to make fund balance and to fund some of the reserves for some of these things that will come up, right? If there's a roof that needs repair, we maybe went out to referendum and thought we were going to put in a new roof, but we have to have money set aside. So we do that through a capital reserve account. There's also a maintenance reserve account. And last year we had a beginning balance of $4.8 million, and we actually stashed away $5 million. We did spend some of it this year, but there's $7.2 million left over, which is important because if we do have aging, infrastructure, we don't have a choice to not fix a roof, right? Like the kids need a roof that works. They have to have a place that's safe. And to have that money is always the best thing to happen because you don't run into a situation where, oh gosh, we didn't budget for it. How are we going to pay for it? It's really important. And I, spoke at length with Nicole and her team about this, and that was part of the plan. And will be part of the plan moving forward. But overall, that's really it. I'd like to keep these things relatively short and sweet. If there was stuff for you to know about, I would tell you about it. There were the two comments. Honestly, nothing that I'm very concerned about. I know we're going to get rid of both of them next year. And I just want to thank Nicole and her team. You're in good hands. And the one thing I did want to say is, we did have a lot of turnover in the BA's office, and I have a lot of clients that are not blessed with a team that has come in. It's very tough to find good qualified people. There's a lot of school districts out there and a lot of aging people who just they're done with it. They want to retire, they want to collect their pensions. And there's a lot of places that are struggling to find good people. So thank you, Nicole.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Any questions?
Board members, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have. In the uncertainty that we are living today, in terms of federal funding, especially for food for our kids, is your company or any efforts behind the scenes preparing Plan B or any recommendations that if that happens, because if it's going to happen, it's not going to be in a year.
is coming fast and furious, that you could then reach out to the district that you are doing the audits and provide them recommendations or plan of
Yeah, so
action.
I had this conversation with Nicole earlier today. I mean, on the day that our president came out and said, I'm freezing all federal funding, I mean, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, I had calls from every single district about, we have federally funded teachers. How are we going to pay payroll? Like, what are we going to do? We have the lunch food. We have, I have boards of social services that want to know about Medicare and, Medicaid and TANF and Section 8. And there was a lot of craziness, a lot of wildness, but once people really broke down what he was saying, and the state did actually a great job of coming out and saying that the administration is not looking to take away those things. They were looking more for the other stuff that we're seeing all over the news today. But yeah, I mean, we're very in tune with what's going on. We have, 75 school districts, 125 local governments, equally as many authorities throughout the state. We're very in tune with this, and I will definitely add Nicole to my list and Nicole will reach out when that becomes a thing. We will, delineate that information as it comes in. But I think, the heart of me tells me that these programs, they're not going to, I mean, there's social backstops. I mean, I don't think that that's going to be the case. And if it is the case, I think we're going to have a lot bigger fish to fry. But yeah, I will definitely keep everybody abreast of that and use us. I mean, we see everything from all the different school districts, so we do get a lot of different insight into these things.
Thank you.
Of course.
Do you have any other questions from the board? I have a couple, maybe more like bounce between you and Ms. Schoening. So for the food service fund balance, so part of that falls on to the fact that, we had budgeted years prior with regards to COVID. Then COVID came. We had these, funds that were allotted for food services. The government gave free funding for the food services. So part of that is contributing still to the carryover.
Yeah, I mean, those funds are still contributing because they were sitting there, and we're still, we're not running a deficit. So like the only way to get rid of that is to either spend it, and a big problem is when you're buying equipment for a school food service, it's not that easy to, it comes up, it's not that easy to spend that money.
It has to be on food service.
Right. It
Yeah,
has to be on
very
that point.
specific
So,
line item.
right? So you want to get a new walk-in freezer, you can't just go to Best Buy and buy, you got to order one. It takes time. There's supply chain issues. So I know Nicole has definitely looked at ways to spend that, and
That was going to be
We
my
have
other,
several.
I know we've
Yeah.
discussed in finance, but maybe if we could
purchased
share
several
some of our
pieces
ideas.
of equipment in all of our kitchens, between freezers and countertops and ovens, and we're still working toward it. We're also going to be charging off some salaries for our lunch aides and our custodians that service the cafeteria directly. We can also charge off a portion of our utility bills based on square footage. So we have great plans to spend it. But, to Matt's point, it's easier said than done because we're bound by
Some regulation.
contracts and purchasing laws, and things need to be vetted through. But we're on a good path of
and
spending.
it's a great comment to have, right? Like, oh my God, we have too much money. Like, and we're not price gouging our kids
Spend it on
here.
anything.
Yes, and
Right, we're not like, it's not the assumption, they make these laws and there's these rules and these comments that like, okay, we don't want you generating, but it really, it doesn't take into the whole world and what's happened. Like, we're not price gouging our students for funds.
And that's the point that I
Yeah.
think we want the public
Agreed.
to understand, that, we're not trying to take away, we're not trying to, price point where our food services and, items which are a third-party vendor, is being harmed or penalized, and the items that Ms. Schoening named are items that would have required replacement anyways. So the look is to utilize funds that are an overage in a smart and conservative manner.
100%.
Okay. And then,
I also just want to add, Ms. Shoney and her team also tour our food facilities across the district in the different buildings. And, we transferred over to a new food service company this year. And they've been really helpful, as well as identifying those certain areas that we do need to improve upon. And that's what's on the list. And certainly we're going to be moving forward with.
and then I kind of also wanted to speak to that, the additional funds that we found in our fund balance in terms of, our planning for the future is also in, with the mindset that state aid is not going to be the overage that we had last year. We're now coming to a point where we're flat, so we're not going to have that extra funding, So again, the district, we're doing, the smart things to plan accordingly, but to also know that $7.5 million isn't going to, add a whole nother wing to building.
It's going to be patch jobs. And,
Yeah.
and that's, obviously, if that's what you want, the referendum's unfortunately the only way to go about it. But you need to have money, God forbid something happens,
And certainly, I just want to echo that point that, as a district, since the, failure of the referendum, we've made conscientious decisions and strategic steps in order to address the immediate needs of our buildings. As you see, that we're replacing roofs, we're addressing HVAC, because certainly those are the, most basic entities for the safety and security of our students. And, certainly we're very fortunate from a financial standpoint that we are making these strategic decisions, that we're able to put aside money and spend it towards items that are in dire straits.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, Dr. Bangia, before I move on to committee reports, anything else?
I think that's all I have, just as reminders. And school's closed on Monday, just FYI.
4-day weekend.
And
for
no,
the
I do
kids.
not know when the snow days are going to happen, if any, this week. So just
The weather whisperer over there.
that a psycho person.
All right, now it's Mrs. Aquino's.
Thank you. The Personnel Committee met on the 4th of February, and all committee members were present. We discussed the Buildings and Grounds reorganization plan in greater detail. 3 supervisor positions with correlating job descriptions were reviewed by the committee. The responsibilities of the new positions of maintenance supervisor, buildings and grounds supervisor, and custodial supervisor were discussed, as well as any associated costs. Mr. Moore updated the committee on the actions the district is taking in order to remain in compliance with the new Title IX information from both state and federal government. And he also updated the committee on several reoccurring monthly personnel topics. Thank you.
Follow up that, Ms. Aquino, if I may,
Yes.
Madam President. What was the time, and I apologize for this in the meeting, what were the timeframes that we're looking at to post for those supervisory positions?
We are looking to post within the next couple weeks.
Okay, super. And then I think from a funding standpoint, the bulk of that money for those supervisors are coming from the previous supervisor's salary, but we do have to find a little bit other money somewhere else for one of those positions as well. So, but it's nominal, and we'll get back to the full board with that when Dr. Bangia and Mr. Moore are done with their assessment of everything. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to Curriculum and Instruction Committee report. Ms. Figueroa.
Good evening. We just met from 5:30 to 6:30 here at the board office. In attendance were Mrs. Fenton, Mrs. O'Neill, Mrs. Aquino, Mrs. McDermott, Dr. Bangia, and myself. We had 2 special guests join us this evening, our ELA supervisors, Jenny and Leah. And we received an update from both elementary and secondary ELA supervisors. We also discussed the details were shared with us, rather, for the upcoming PD Day this Friday, the 14th. We discussed the Junior National Honor Society. We also discussed the LEAP 3-year plan. That stands for the Language Instruction Educational Plan. And we concluded our meeting with a discussion of field trips. Our full notes will be available at our next meeting.
Do we have any questions from the board? I see Ms. Fitzgerald. No?
I don't have any questions. I feel great. I'm ready to go next, unless anybody has any questions.
That's why.
That's why I'm ready.
And I have a question. Are any of the items that were in C&T, are they action items at all?
Oh, right.
Yes, we updated the field trips. We're focusing upon those are happening this month of February, and we're going to be looking at the ones later in the school year at the upcoming meeting. So that was adjusted.
Follow with that, Madam Madam President, I did ask Dr. Banjian, and she gave me a great explanation as to why the actual dates of the field trips were on there for a safety reason, that the board had instituted that last year. And I just asked her if the board, in our updates, if we could get you the exact date, so she agreed to that. So just want to follow up. Thank you for that.
So the public understands, if there's any minutes or notes in terms of the field trips posted anywhere publicly for the safety of the students, and what, Dr. Giordano is referencing is whether the dates are listed or not. So for the board members, we'll be able to see what dates they are publicly. We're not going to list those, simply.
It's just the month and the year, obviously. We just want to make sure that at the end of the day,
Smart.
no one knows when our kids are going to a field trip, that's all.
Look, the safety of our students are
Yeah.
first priority. So, okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, seeing none. Now we will move on to finance and operations, Ms. Pacheco.
Hooray, okay. Yes, so Finance and Operations met last week on the 4th at 5:30. In attendance was myself, Ms. Figuerera, Ms. Schoening, Mr. Orzillo, and I believe that was it. First things first, we will actually be having another meeting because we just love our finance meetings so much on the 19th. And that one is focused completely on the budget, really getting time to just focus on the preliminary view of the budget, how it's coming together, all of the line items, et cetera. So that is February 19th at 4:30. One of the items that we did discuss in our last meeting was the track resurfacing at the high school. It was very exciting, you guys. We had like touch and feel samples of turf. It was very exciting. I'm telling you, our finance meetings, you're missing out. We got to take a look at that. See, you'll see the costs there, the difference between the two types, really trying to compare and contrast what's going to last the longest, materials, et cetera. And then one of the items that we talked about is the lease agreement with E-Risk as well. You'll see tonight that is an action item. We are actually going to be removing that this evening. We still have a question or two, and we are not ready to vote on that tonight. So that's just one edit for later when we get to the action items. And that about, I feel like that's a good. And then you guys obviously saw the audit tonight, so I feel like we probably took up enough of your finance and operations time. Any questions?
Madam President,
Yep. Dr. Giordano.
on the minutes, how much is left on that Mr. Meso's PO that the committee's going to put for board approval at the next meeting?
Let me see. Do we have
It was, it says contract responsibilities through June 2025. It said there was money left.
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because I don't have my notes written.
There's $20,000 remaining.
Thank you.
So his work that will happen between now and June 30th will be about 6 to 9 hours a month.
Super, thank you.
I have a question. So you were looking at the turf.
Yes, at the stadium.
Is it just the stadium? I've been hearing some concerns about the dome as well. Have you?
About the turf in the dome?
Yeah,
Okay.
Ms. Schoening,
So,
Yep.
we are, I'm sorry, I was going to say, we are doing some patchwork on the dome.
Yes.
There's some sections, and we're taking care of that.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, the turf that we're looking to replace in the field is, I don't know, Mr. Arzillo, do you want to talk about the turf that I heard you were pretty excited about it too.
no
There's no
pellets.
pellets.
No pellets.
No crumbles.
Families
district-wide rejoice.
Yeah. And the durability of this, so the turf that we're looking at is, I want to say, the next generation of turf.
Yes.
In which we're trying to eliminate a lot of the, the pellets, which if any parent who has a kid in sports, how
Over
awful that
vacuums,
is.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I do have a
Yeah.
question, and maybe you can't answer this, but a curious mind. So those pellets were actually for shock absorption, from what I
It
understand.
just has a different
So-
layer. It's just not pellets. It actually looks kind of like foam.
It's
New
like
technology.
Okay.
three
All right.
half-inch layer of like styrofoam underneath.
And do we know what it's made out of by any
Yes,
chance? I would
but
just, you know what,
don't
here's
have
my.
It doesn't get
and this
hot
is,
like
I
the
don't
other
need
stuff.
you guys to
Yeah,
tell me this, but.
Could we just
my-
speak one at a time for
sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, Jeannie.
My concern is like the PFAS.
Sure.
And the, all the plastics. So if you could just really look into that, because especially in the dome, it bothers me that the circulation obviously isn't as good as an outside facility.
Can I answer that, Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
So certainly that was paramount as far as when we were looking at it, that was a no-go really for the forefront that we wanted to make sure that anything that we're going with is absolutely safe for our kids. So that was the only ones that we were willing to look at. So, and certainly we also wanted to look at the next generation of the safety of it, just because the pallets are not necessarily safe. Also the heat that gets
Yes,
off there. So we looked at all these different entities, and our director of facilities did go on site visits to look at these different types of turf. So we're really excited about that we're moving forward with a particular brand and typical type, just because it does, from a health standpoint, safety standpoint, it checks off all the boxes.
Excellent, thank you.
It's also a 12-year warranty, right?
Yes, we had all,
Longer
yes.
warranty, right?
Yeah.
How, and for those that don't know, the blades of, synthetic grass, we'll call it, are shorter, smaller. The one question, Ms. Schoening, I know maybe this is a takeaway. Do we know how much life warranty is left on the turf in the dome? It just seems that turf gets more use, which more wear and tear, which may be why it's starting to break down a lot more.
I don't know that answer, but I will certainly
Yeah.
get it for you.
No problem.
But I will tell you, as you know, that dome is super popular.
Yeah.
It is used all
Really?
the
I didn't know
time.
that. No.
All the time. It is always, when the few times that we were closed or delayed openings, that was the most important emails going through. What's going on with the dome? Is it open? I'm getting questions. So it gets a lot of use.
And this might be a takeaway for our buildings and grounds, it just popped into my head. If the question to the vendor is, will the life of the turf last longer if we only allow turf shoes, which means they don't have the hard cleats on them, versus a turf which actually has more of a rubber sole, smaller, turf, or how I put it, spikes. And actually on the flip side, it's actually better for, students, athletes, injuries, prevention, and joints. That may be a takeaway, though. Whether or not that is a way to look at things, I don't know.
Certainly, we engage in conversation. I know right off the bat, the enforcement of that
Is,
It
yes.
turns out, because we use so many outside groups,
Yep.
that it's not, obviously, if it was an in-house thing, that we can certainly dictate as far as how we want to enforce that. But certainly, since we rent it out to
Yeah.
so many different organizations, a lot of tournaments, that, who's going to man that, who's going to oversee that. And, but certainly we can engage in conversation. No,
Yeah, or maybe not a mandate, but a suggestion. And maybe the overall question is, does it benefit extended life of this asset we have? It's a, large chunk of money that we're looking at. And if we're looking at a 12-year warranty, we want to make sure the warranty is not voided, and, that if there's any way to extend that life of the turf too. I mean, it's a big conversation we're all having. Okay.
Well, maybe that could be added to the contract, that when we rent the dome, it could be added in some way to the agreement that they're signing.
Yeah.
And in-house, we can then establish.
Yeah, maybe the
certain
first
kind of-
question is if it is beneficial.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think first things first, we should just ask the person installing it what shoes should be worn, and we can just
Yeah.
go from there first.
Yep.
For sure.
I think it's a good starting point.
Madam President, real quick,
Yep.
have we talked about, or for Ms. Fitzgerald, since we're doing the high school field, have we talked about the middle school field?
starting with the high school.
Okay. So that's on the radar of the middle school field?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that we've taken up? Turf.
I told you, it's an exciting topic.
All right, with that, we will move on. Oh, I lost my place there. To policy and governance, and Ms. Melendez.
Yes, we didn't meet. We are meeting on March 5th. However, later on in action items, we have policies that are going to be a second reading this time.
Madam President, real quick, can I just, and I'm not going back to ask questions, I assume with all committees, all action items were approved by the committee for board consideration? Can we start putting that in our minutes at the end, just say all action items were approved by committee for board?
Yep.
Recommendation for full board vote, something like that, just so we know.
Sure. And I will remind everyone, as Ms. Fitzgerald stated, 9.1 is going to be pulled.
Yes, correct.
All right, and do we have any board subcommittee or parent-teacher association liaisons? Anyone present? Did any board members attend any meetings? Oh, we have Ms. Figueroa. And I have-
I received a report from Mountain View. Let me just pull it up. Okay, so Mountain View couldn't be here tonight. But I did get a text on behalf of them. Okay, so they wanted me to share that they recently had the Cookie Kit family event over the weekend. That was a huge success. Families pre-purchased cookies and then came to the school and decorated them. They also have coming up for March, Read Across America. They'll be hosting a family book club with 2 nights of events for families at Mountain View, and those dates will be announced. They're to be determined as of now.
Any questions? And board members, I've been trying to update calendars as I see items. I think I just put the STEAM event for Mountain View on your calendars. And a reminder for Sand Shore, if there's anyone who hasn't, they're having their Read Across America. We should have all gotten the signups. I do have a report for CPAG, and I will read it off from Amy. She said, she's sorry she'll be unable to share our updates in person this evening. So she's asked Mrs. Fenton and myself if we could share for the next few meetings. CPAG is the Special Education Parent Advisory Group here in Mount Olive. It's a New Jersey code-driven, parent-led group that works collaboratively with the districts on systematic concerns regarding students with special education needs. They met in January 14th via Zoom. The meeting was a parent-only meeting, and it was to have a mid-year check-in with all of the parents. They had a good turnout and had a robust conversation on different parent concerns within the district. They're assisting the parents on ways to navigate the chain of command to express their concerns within the district. So whether it be going through their teachers, going to the building vice principals, and principals, guidance, or directly up here to the Board of Ed office. They wanted to remind the parents of some district events coming up. They want to remind them of the superintendent spotlight. They reminded them of the anti-bullying workshops. There's the Navigating the DDD system that was held on January 15th. They said their next meeting is actually tomorrow, February 11th at 7 o'clock via Zoom. And the directors of special services have a district speaker coming to discuss behaviors and behavioral support practices within the district. And then on March 11th, they will be having, they're very excited to have Lily Caparosa, a special education attorney. She's coming to speak on special education law and the rights and protections of students with special educational needs. And she said thank you for sharing her report. And any questions? No. Dr. Banjo, do you know who the guest speaker is then for them tomorrow from the district, or? She said that the directors of special services are having a district speaker come.
It's, I believe, our,
Is it Ms. Bello, or?
is it in our attorney, I think? Is it Ms. Clean?
Oh, no, it just said they're coming to discuss behaviors and behavioral support practices.
I'm not sure.
BCBA's in district?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Just interesting. So anyone, CPAG has a meeting tomorrow night as well. That is all I have. Is David and Nash
David Nash is tomorrow.
at the same time? Okay. So we're going to have multiple screens going.
And also,
But just remember that the David Nash one, you don't have to attend that time. The meeting will be recorded.
You do have to sign up to get the recording though,
Yep.
right? Okay.
we have another,
And Ms.
the
Melendez.
Citizens Advisory Academy is tomorrow also at 7 p.m. And that tomorrow is in grading policy for those parents that are interested. And it's the Mount Olive High School, it's at Mount Olive High School, and it's the grading policy. Yeah. But remember that this program, you have to sign up for it. So if you were already accepted for this session, so please feel free to attend. And if you are interested in the future, so reach out to Mr. James Carifia, our security director.
Do we know how many people we have registered for the Citizens Advisory?
It's 25.
25 are registered?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions? No? Okay, seeing none, I have nothing for President's report.
Oh, hang on, I do have one thing for the middle school.
Oh.
Actually, a couple things for the middle school. The Mount Olive Middle School PTO also met, I believe, last week. The biggest item is that their Tricky Tray is coming up. It is their biggest event of the year. That is on March 28th at 5 p.m. This year is going to be at the Chandelier. There's dinner. But you need to register before March 14th. So just a note for everybody. And then also just a note for 8th grade parents, 8th grade t-shirts and lawn signs are on sale now. That sale runs through April 15th.
And I think we're, for 8th grade, the shout-outs or announcements were already due for the yearbook.
Yes, that's been,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
And then I think the PTO sent out the pre-registration or purchase for the Tricky Tray, right?
Yes,
That
yes,
came out,
everything is
so-
all online now. There's a flyer with a QR code and you can register. And then if you want to buy extra tickets, that's there as well.
Perfect. Anyone else before we skip ahead? No? Okay, seeing none. We will move to the public comments on action items. Members of the community may comment on any action item prior to board discussion. Please state your name and address for the record. All comments must be respectfully presented. Abusive or obscene comments will not be tolerated. And please just direct your comments to the board. And the mic is yours. And note 9.1 is being tabled or removed from the agenda for now. Action items? Going once, going twice. All right, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of monthly expenditures and reports. We'll take a motion to move those. Dr. Giordano.
Thank you, Madam President. The recommendation of the superintendent approve the monthly expenditures and reports 6.1 to 6.8.
Second.
And do we have any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call. Ms. Schoening?
Dr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
All right, and we will move to personnel action items. Mrs. Aquino.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent to move personnel action items 7.1 through 7.19.
Second.
And do we have any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call, please. Sorry.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Dr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
I abstain from anything with the last name Humphrey, and yes to everything else.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
All right, we'll move to curriculum and technology. Ms. Figueroa?
Upon recommendation of the superintendent, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 8.1 through 8.5.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? No, I think we addressed the field trips. All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Dr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
All right, and we will move on to finance and operations. Ms. Fitzgerald.
Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, I'd like to make a motion to approve action items 9.2 through 9.8.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Dr. Giordano?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
All right, and then we will move on to, why am I, like, my computer's going crazy. Okay, administrative action items, and we'll, Ms. Melendez.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent, I present a motion to approve items 10.1 through 10.3.
Second. I got it first.
Smokes, Dr. G.
I don't think you did.
I think Miss Fitzgerald
I
got
think
that.
Ms.
I think she
Fitzgerald
did,
did
too.
get that.
All right, any questions from the board? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino,
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton,
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera,
Yes.
Dr. Giordano,
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo.
Yes.
All right, we will move on now to public comments. Students, parents, employees, and community members may comment on any item of interest pertaining to the Mount Olive School District. Please state your name and address for the record. All comments must be respectfully presented. Abusive or obscene comments will not be tolerated. And the mic is open.
Hey, we know that guy.
Tony Strelacci, 6 Knollwood Road, Flanders. It's very nice to see you all again. I must honestly tell you, I miss you all. I really
We
do.
miss you.
I know you have a lot on your plate. I know that from experience, and I hate to give you something else to think about, but I think it's important. I want to talk to you about the scoreboard. Now, the reason why I want to talk to you about it is because the only person who really knows the history and the facts is Dr. Giordano, because he was on the board at that time. And I want to make note that with the history and the facts I want to give you, I'm not disparaging any organization or pointing any finger at anybody, because it's not productive. But we have a sleeping giant there that we have to discuss and do something about. The history on it is very simple. At one point in time, back about almost 4 years ago now, we were approached with the idea of putting up this scoreboard. We were going to use about $400,000 or $500,000 of taxpayers' money, but we were told at that time that that scoreboard was going to be paid for by a corporation around here. That never materialized. So now the Education Foundation, which is a very fine organization, came to us and said, look, we'd like you to purchase that, and what we will do is we will go out and get sponsors and advertisers and what have you, and we think we can generate upwards of $300,000 a year. And we will pay you X percentage for the cost of that for so many years until it's paid off. Well, we were kind of skeptical about that, thinking that, well, geez, we don't know if they're going to get that kind of money and what have you. And I, in particular, objected to the first agreement simply because the last article in that agreement said once they paid us off for that, all the revenue that they got from that went to the Education Foundation. We got nothing. So we rejected the first agreement. Then we negotiated, came back, and so finally they came back with a second agreement, and we said, okay, we'll give it a try. But at the end, when it was all paid off, we would then have the greater percentage of revenue that came in for that. Now, it was great. It was going to be good for the Education Foundation, good for us. We can use the money coming in. We rent a lot of our facilities now, and we get some good revenue. And boy, we can certainly use that money for programs. So we really have to start thinking about what we're going to do with that. So I have some suggestions for you. First of all, we have to dissolve the agreement with the Education Foundation. They just don't have the manpower to be able to go out, nor the expertise to go out and sell the advertising. Second of all, there was a point in time, and I don't know if it still exists at this time, that I believe there was supposed to be a supervisor of the scoreboard and have some students be groomed and you know, on how to operate the scoreboard, and they can. They can operate the scoreboard. But now we have to teach them how to do some advertising ads and things like that, and they can certainly do that. I mean, if you recall, when you looked at that LED screen up on the pack, I mean, they did some magical things on that thing. They can do that. They can do some nice ads. But what we have to do is now we have to go out and I'd like to make this suggestion. First of all, you got to go, if you don't have one now, get a supervisor. Pay them a stipend. We pay stipends for everything. Get a group of kids. It's educational. Teach them how to do it and what have you, so forth. Let's get ready to do it. Then what we should do is have that supervisor, and I believe it's Sparta, I'm not sure, but Sparta does the same thing. Get in touch with Sparta. See how they operate that scoreboard. See how they get their advertising. They're doing very, very well with it. I believe it's Sparta. Could be Jefferson, but I believe it's Sparta. And that's our first start, because we have to come up with a structure of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. The second thing is we have to go out and get an advertising agency. We do not have the expertise. We do not have the manpower to go out and do it. They will be able to go out and get the sponsors, get the advertisers, get the messaging that goes on there, and we can start to make the ball rolling and get this thing going. We have to get some more generate some more revenue coming in. And we have a sleeping giant there. It's doing nothing. Yes, it shows a burst of fireworks or something when we score a touchdown, but it's about it. We paid a lot of money for that thing. It's time to give the taxpayers back their worth. So I suggest looking into that and getting moving on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Banjo, did you want to comment or wait till the end?
I would like to have some time to kind of reflect on that because there's a lot of
Yeah.
nuance here. So.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else from the public who would like to come up and speak? Anyone? All right, seeing none, we will close out public comments one more time. All right. Old business. Members of the board may comment on any item or topic that was previously discussed by the board. Anyone? Board members?
I do, Ms. Narcisse.
Yeah.
Just following up, we did discuss the special ed audit, and I know we have a public presentation with Ms. Clean. I know we have our second meeting is Ms. Peterson coming to do the board training. Can we look, is it possible you think maybe the first meeting in March?
We can discuss that.
All right, super.
Yeah,
'Cause At some
let's
point,
get the
I think the
calendar.
public we need to put that out. We need to have that done.
Sorry, I'm making a note. You said March, maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
preferably the first
All right,
March meeting
I'll
if she's
make a note.
available.
Anyone else for any comments? No? Okay. We're going to move on to new business. Members of the board may introduce any new topic or item for discussion. Anyone?
Yes.
No? Oh, there you go, Ms. Melendez.
From the Citizen Academy, right? The presenters, they presented some of them, some concerns, especially in resources that maybe the administration could take a look at that in terms of transportation, safety for elementaries, in the bus ride. They mentioned that possible more aids, at least 3 aids for 3 specific buses that it could be very helpful for the security of the kids. And also in the facilities, they mentioned also, well, after Mr. Mazzo contract maybe is up, to look for possible having in the district a full-time carpenter and a full-time HVAC person, because there is a lot of projects that we do. So
Just clarification, is that coming from a participant in the, or who, where's
Or
this?
an employee.
in general, the discussion
from the
was in
public?
general, yes.
So for the participants, this, or,
And the presenter, a conversation, an exchange during the presentation,
okay.
yes.
And who are the presenters again, just curious?
Transportation, I can't remember the name, but she
Ms.
was
Trojanowski?
very nice.
Red hair?
Patty.
Patty?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
Mr. DiMatteo.
Okay.
As a follow-up, that we did talk in personnel about
Yeah.
carpenter and HVAC,
And-
permanent guys
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So
We
it's
do,
in the
We
works.
have-
we currently
do
have, we have
people.
3 HVAC people in the district.
Yes.
We already
Already.
have 3
We have
HVAC
3
individuals.
full-time.
And we
And
just,
we looked,
We still have the contract out.
yeah.
yeah, and then we
So-
just approved tonight the certification training rate for the boiler.
Yeah, and then someone who's did our carpentry work just resigned about a couple months ago. So we're just looking for someone.
And to kind of maybe twist off of that or piggyback off of that, just again, food for thought. I know some of the board members have, talked, and is there any room or opportunities for maybe some of our students to have some apprenticeships in-house off of those HVAC training, electrical? I know we have some students, right, Mr. Sansbury, that go over to VOTEC for the certification or the But I know after that, there's been difficulty finding apprenticeship for some of them. If maybe down the road, or we put it out on the table, I'm not saying today. But. And it would also maybe bring them back in-house then for that work-study timeframe. Just ideas.
It could be option 2 too. If we adopt that, they can do stuff like that, work study. Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking to Ms. Shoney next to me.
We're just spewing ideas out at you in the middle of the meeting.
So I would suggest perhaps with personnel, if you want to share those ideas.
Yeah, to put it through committee.
Through committee, and then we can have a conversation about that.
Maybe it'd be
'Cause
long-term.
certainly that's typically how we kind of run through the process.
Anyone else?
I do.
And you can put on their bus aids too. Well,
Yeah, I didn't know I was your secretary.
You're not, but you're the chair of the committee. I'm just saying.
And
just
I'm
put
not
that on.
here, and I can hear it as well.
Yeah, I think there's some follow-up clarity we have on some of them.
He's going to provide you the notes
I'm sure he
in
is.
just a second.
That's absolutely, I'm not. I'm just listening, trying to get my expertise along.
We've kind of
Yes, everyone can stop calling me
blurred
that.
board comments with new business here. All right, any other new business? All right, we'll move on to board comments. All right, board members and administrators. Members of the board may comment, make any comment, or interest having to do with Mount Olive School District. And we'll start down there, Dr. Giordano.
Thank you, Madam President. Just one little thing I heard, the 8th grade dance went off beautifully, and I'd like just to thank Ms. Wilkie and the VPs that she works with at the middle school. I heard it was, everyone was happy to see all the administrators in the middle school there, so congratulations to them.
And that
And
was
tonight, if we got early enough, the wrestling section's on.
We're moving on.
moving on.
Everyone?
Yep.
In Ridge, we actually faced Fairlawn Ridge.
Nice.
Oh, really?
Ridge was the big
It's
question.
moving along swiftly, and then more than likely we'll wrestle on Wednesday at Phillipsburg.
So that was, for those in the public, that was the quarterfinals of the state sectionals that we hosted this evening. Is that correct?
Quarters and semis.
Oh, quarters and semis, okay.
Sectional championship will be
And will that be hosted here, Mr. Stansberry?
No, Wednesday's Phillipsburg.
Because the higher rank?
Yeah.
Okay, so Wednesday at
A
Phillipsburg.
hot start against Fairlawn in the second round here today, so.
It's probably good by the time we get out of the meeting.
All right, so that's for the, school, not the individuals.
I know. That was a big deal.
All right, anything else?
Anything else, Dr. Giordano?
Ms. Fitzgerald?
I do want to piggyback on the 7th and 8th grade dance. Not only were there a lot of administrators there that we're very thankful for, but the parents who put in a ton of time and the students to decorate and chaperone and man the snack tables, and the photo booth was great. The kids really had a blast. I know it's a lot of work. It does not go unnoticed, and we appreciate you. And then also congratulations to our Mount Olive High School cheerleaders. They just came back from Florida, had a great showing, really looked awesome. I got to see their routine. It was lovely. So congratulations on an excellent, that was yep, it was, and they looked fantastic. So congrats to them. That's all I have.
Ms. Melendez?
The last weekend, even with the weather, there was a robotics competition that a couple of our alumni were volunteer also, was host at the Mount Olive High School for a special award. And also the Air Force ROTC bingo was rescheduled, right?
It's Saturday.
Oh, Saturday?
This coming Saturday.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. I was looking for that. I said, I'm not sure where is it then.
Yeah.
But other than that, so that's it for today.
Ms. Patton, Ms.
Aquino.
Aquino, sorry.
I just want to thank the C&T team as well as Dr. Bangia for seriously considering our field trips. And we had a lively discussion about it that we're going to continue at our next meeting. So I appreciate our team and Dr. Bangia.
Second.
Ms. Patton.
Actually, quite a few of us went to the Muslim Heritage Festival, and it was absolutely spectacular. The food, the vendors, the culture was just beautiful. And that's about it. But I think ROTC, don't they have an event coming up? No, I'm sorry. JROTC, they, no.
Robotics?
Robotics, thank you. Did they have?
Well, the big competition is coming up in March.
March.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's March or?
It's March.
March, right?
They have a rollout coming out in a week or two, because their 6-week build is complete. So they do
Okay.
a rollout on Saturday, and they'll unveil the 2 robots from Team 11 and Team 193.
Cool.
The Mid-Atlantic Championship is in the first weekend of March.
Is it
March
first?
7th, 8th, and 9th.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew something
It's the
was
second
coming.
Saturday.
And are we
that
hosting
weekend.
that, Mr. Stansberry?
Mid-Atlantic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for the public that can't hear Mr. Stansberry over here, we're hosting robotics Mid-Atlantic competition on March 7th and 8th, you said?
7th, 8th, and 9th.
7th, 8th, and 9th.
We'll
Oh,
have about 4,000 spectators
Oh,
in
my
attendance.
And they're looking always for volunteers, so parents cheer up and go over there because they need people.
And I
And board
really
members, it
encourage
actually is a very easy volunteer gig. It's very fun.
I just encourage also parents to bring their students, their kids with them.
Yes,
It's just
for
what a
sure.
great way to look at
It's
what they
awesome.
potentially can do as they get older. So it's not only about whether or not your child participates, it's about just seeing the wonderful work not only our students, but students across the state do.
That's right.
And so it's really just gratifying to see, what the future holds.
And very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm done.
oh, okay. We'll swing over to Mr. Urzillo.
I really don't have none. Thanks.
Look at that. He wins the prize. Shortest answer.
There you go.
Get the sticker.
Ms. Figueroa.
I just want to extend my congratulations to our high school cheerleaders in addition to what Mrs. Fitzgerald said.
Mrs. O'Neill.
Congratulations to the cheerleaders, and I was also glad that we got a curriculum and technology discussion going about the field trips.
That leaves me. Okay. Everybody said everything. I also wanted to recognize, I know our swimmers have some individual, recognitions. Bowling had some great recognitions. Track and field always winning, taking home a lot of awards. I also wanted to mention, last week I attended the Women in Sports ceremony and celebration. So we hosted girls varsity wrestling, hosted, I forget which town.
Hillsborough.
We had a tri-meet, right? And then afterwards, we had a whole ceremony. And one of the interesting things that was asked of me was, why did we have both a female and a male senior student speak? And what I think we fail to remember often is we should also show praise, because there are males that are very supportive of female athletes. And, Title IX, as we were discussing that, Mr. Moore's going for more research and training on some of the new regulations, was enacted initially for the purpose of equality in funding for women in education, which also then blew the doors open for women in sports, girls in sports. So, I want to make sure that we recognize our male counterparts that are always supportive of us out there. Without them, where would we be? And to, echo, also this week coming up is, I think next week, our all-district choirs concerts. So please be on the lookout for those. Throw them up on people's calendars if you need some reminders of that. Those are band, choir, and orchestra as well. And before next month, I believe in end of March, we will also have our middle school. Is it end of March, Ms. Aquino? The middle school musical coming out. Or is that
May.
April?
No, May. That's May.
Oh, that's later. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm totally wrong on the dates. And that's about all I have right now.
You just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
At our all-district choral concert at the high school next Wednesday that you mentioned,
Yep.
the Mountain View 5th grade is having a bake sale. So come and get your goodies to enjoy while you're enjoying the performance.
That is all I have.
Oh, my word.
Your dealer's over
Do
there.
specific
Where's our-
requests.
Anyone else? All right, other than that, and I also want to say, Mr. Strelacci, thank you for your comments. We're going to follow up on much of that, because Dr. Banji and I did actually speak a couple meetings ago about following up with the Ed Foundation. And just one piece, all funds, my understanding, and we'll look at the contract that the Ed Foundation collects, has to go back into student programming, whether it's in the format of scholarships at the end of the year. But I do agree that engaging them for more participation as a partnership is definitely needed and in the works. And I do believe they're also due to report their financials out to us. They're supposed to do that on an annual basis as well, as my understanding. So there's definitely more of a deep dive to put that in the forefront for conversation and for action, actionable items going on there. And with that, I will take a motion to go into closed confidential session. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And second? Okay. Be it resolved that the board meet in confidential session for the purpose of discussing personnel, matters of client-attorney privilege, pending or anticipated litigation. And I think that is all on the list. Be it further resolved that matters discussed in confidential session be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists. Action may be taken. All in favor? Aye. We are now in confidential session. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.